Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be heading over to the Sun Belt Conference and taking a look at Georgia State Panthers, who are coming off a 3-9 season. They wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their spring game on April 11th. And we have a special guest joining us today. He is a Georgia State alumni. He is a former walk-on. He covers Georgia State for PantherTalk.com on 24/7 Sports. He is Ben Moore. Ben can be found on X at Ben Moore 247. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. Appreciate the intro there, man. That was some good energy, man. Always appreciate it.
For a small fee, I can come with you and introduce you like that to every room you walk into. I think get everyone's attention. But
I love that. I may take you up on that for sure.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been covering Georgia State football?
Yeah, man. We just actually had our anniversary of our site. Launched really in 2009. A couple guys basically that I went to school with. Basically, once we started football at Georgia State, launched that out there, and it was just, as little things happen, be a message board and things that way. And basically, I got, kind of roped in. I've been doing some stuff independently, doing some contract work with SB Nation for folks that remember that now. Fox, that just wealth of talent over there. Guys and gals have scattered every which way, including ESPN and other places. The Athletic as well. But started, kind of covering day to day, basically, when the program launched. It's crazy now in year 16, basically, to see this program evolve and continue to push forward. And now 2025, to see what the expectations are and certainly, going to, face off against multiple SEC teams just wasn't even a thing. Basically, when I was in school at Georgia State, and probably for most people, it was just mostly a pipe dream. And it's been a great ride. Fortunate to have some great talented folks that have worked on our site with us as well. Brady Weiler, at primary this last few years, handling content for us. We've got great columnists, Chris Hilliard and other folks that have helped just push along the way. So it's not a one-man team by any means, and fortunate for everybody that jumps in on social media, comes visits the site, or listens to podcasts like this.
All right, well, let's talk about some football and start on the offensive side of the ball. For those not familiar with the Panthers' offensive style, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different this year. Del McGee changed both coordinators coming off of 2024. Hugh Jackson takes over the offensive coordinator spot. Don't expect the offense to change tremendously, basically in the lineup. Still going to be kind of spread. But I think you're going to have more nuanced pieces as well. What was kind of fascinating after last year, really going after some pocket passers, in Christian Veilleux and Zach Gibson. Now you went more to dual threat guys. Basically, if you can't run and get out in the RPO game, we've seen all across college football too, right? You have to have that dynamic, especially somebody over, under center specifically to stretch the defense, both with their arm and their legs. So they went out and got PJ Hatter, Cameron Brown, PJ Hatter from Texas State, and then Cameron Brown from Texas Tech. Both guys can run. That's the one thing about Del McGee. He really, really wants guys that can really, really run. Basically, been kind of told that if you're not running track in high school, he's not going to be terribly interested in you, especially the skill position players. And this roster is very fast. So I think there's going to be a more of a balanced attack. Last year, they were very heavy in terms of passing. Had to be, really. The offensive line was pretty rough. Probably one of the worst in the Sun Belt, candidly. I think it's definitely an improved offensive line, definitely a super strong running back group, and some pass catchers that will make whoever takes that snap, week one against Ole Miss, look pretty good as well.
Well, let's get over to the position where it all starts on offense, and that's quarterback coming into the 2024 season. The question was, how would this team look without Darren Granger at the helm? Well, we saw some ups and downs. Christian Veilleux won the job. in the fall over Zach Gibson, and the team started 2-2 and had a win over Vandy. And then in the fifth game of the season, Zach Gibson got some playing time against ODU and started the next week against Marshall. Christian would be pushed into action against Arkansas State, the 10th game of the season, because Zach exited with a leg injury. And then with 2 games left in the season, Veyer looked pretty darn good against Texas State, where he threw 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no INTs. However, the following week at home against Coastal, it was a totally different story. Threw for 205 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 INTs. Like you talked about, the staff brought in Brown from Texas Tech and Hatter from Texas State. Then we saw Zach Gibson head to FAU in the spring. What should we make of this quarterback room heading into 2025?
Yeah, all the guys were there, including TJ Stanley, who's the state championship winning quarterback, high school signee. He had 4 quarterbacks in camp. A lot of fans, I think, from Georgia State side of things were probably, hey, Christian Veyer is not going to have a shot. He's not going to be around. He was around in spring, did some good things. Second year, basically, kind of in this offense. I think the difficult part for him is, as we saw last year as well, where he gets in trouble is when he tries to make kind of the hero plays and throw in a double and triple coverage. You're seeing turnovers and things of that nature. Now, was that offensive line? Was that him? Was that him trying to make a play? I think that's certainly debatable coming out of spring. With Cam Brown, he had, again, 2 seasons ago was that now FCS West Georgia. Had a spectacular freshman season last year at Texas Tech, limited reps, kind of used him as that curveball, basically to run pass option type guy. He looked good in spring as well. I think there's a learning curve. PJ Hatter's still a freak show athlete. Not 100% sure what he can do with his arm, because we just haven't seen it at this level. I think really there's going to be 3 guys that are going to battle. We've heard some rumblings about potentially adding another quarterback via the transfer portal late before August. So could throw a little wrinkle there in fall practice. But for now, I think it's going to be one of those 3 guys with probably Cameron Brown getting the nose. So he took the majority of the snaps in the spring.
Well, I guess I kind of want to go through each one of these quarterbacks. And you talked a little bit about Cameron and PJ earlier, but I guess I want to start with the Veyer, because, if people watch Georgia State, they saw him play. If not, I guess if people are not familiar with Christian's game, how would you describe it?
Yeah, he's not really a runner for sure. He's a pro style guy. Bounced around in his career. Landed basically out of high school. Went to Penn State and then went to Pitt. Basically went to UConn, and then this is basically stopped 4. So I think for him, from Pitt to Georgia State, but I think for him, he kind of got solid playing time last year. I think it was a good fit for him in the standpoint of the offense. The trouble, again, as I mentioned a little earlier, is just the offensive line. The offensive line wasn't good, didn't have protection. And really, when you can't get out of the way, you can't move, you're stuck. And I think a lot of times that caused him to force throws. He was pushing the ball down the field to Ted Hurst, which is always a great idea, certainly in this league. But times where he was missing or throwing in double, triple coverage, it burned him quite a bit. And as any quarterback sees the pressure coming in his face all the time, it makes it pretty difficult. And we saw that short arm, a lot of throws, trying to get out of dodge as he continued to get hit. But he's more of a traditional pocket passer, and I don't think. I don't think his style is going to change there. I won't say he's a finished product, but he's probably closer to that than the other 2 that I mentioned earlier.
Well, you talked about PJ Hatter being like just an athletic freak. How would you describe his game?
Yeah, lefty, a little bit shorter, but sub 10.9, 100 meters in high school. Got significant track speed. Texas State's head coaches were raving, and coaching staff were raving about him over there. Just couldn't see the field last year for the Bobcats. So took a red shirt there, light on experience, but could be a guy, could be a curveball guy. Again, you want to get your best athletes on the field, and that's certainly what Del McGee wants to do. So you could see him potentially in some short running options situations and things like that. I think he's going to be the curveball, and just again, very, very live arm. It's just seeing how he has to harness that again with so much inexperience, basically not being able to get on the field. Don't really know what you have until you see it live. He had some impressive moments in spring. Really, really can move, get out in the open field, and we could see that this fall as well.
And I guess the last guy in this 3-man race, the guy that you said took the snaps there early in the spring, Brown. How would you describe his game if somebody's never watched him play?
Yeah, really, really good athlete. Certainly a guy that can move his feet really well. Still kind of developing as a passer there. Is pretty confident. He's a local guy from Warner Robins, Georgia, about an hour and a half south of the city of Atlanta. So comes back to his home state to play. And should have the opportunity to win the job, in my opinion, and take the first snap there against Ole Miss in week 1. But a guy that can definitely get out of the way, can orchestrate the offense, and has played quite a bit. At least at the lower level, FCS level as a redshirt freshman, and then last year saw some action with Texas Tech in kind of a backup or mop-up role. So could, as I mentioned earlier, it could be somebody comes out of the portal or out of nowhere. We just know Del McGee is going to play his best players, period. And we've seen that certainly in his limited time so far in Atlanta.
Well, let's move over to the running game. And by way of graduation or the transfer portal, this room sees its top 3 of 4 running backs in terms of yardage depart. Freddie Brock is a big loss as he was their leading running back a year ago. He's now off to Oklahoma State. The Panthers will look to replace 215 rushing attempts, 1,319 rushing yards, and 10 touchdowns from a season ago. The room returns C.J. Beasley, DJ Murray Jr., and Phoenix Moss. DJ Braswell has transferred in as well and was there in the spring. I assume the staff either wanted more depth or is still searching for their RB1 as they brought in 3 more transfers after the spring. How do these transfers fit into this running back room?
Yeah, I think it's arguable that Georgia State has one of the best running back rooms in the group of 5. If you look at basically the talent acquired, Dell went back to his former stomping grounds at Georgia, grabbing Branson Robinson. DJ Braswell, another high 4-star, 24/7 rankings. Jordan Simmons from Ole Miss follows his former assistant coach there, Enrique Davis, who came over from Ole Miss. Rashad Amos, who another big time guy who balled out multiple spots. I think most recently a couple of years ago, Miami of Ohio. They're loaded. The talent is deep. And again, if you have an offensive line that can block in front of these guys, the Panthers will run the football with some ferocity this season.
Well, you talked about Amos, Robinson, and Simmons. They come in after the spring. So the guys that were there, did anybody stand out to you?
It's one of the it's funny because you enrolled so many guys. You had Tawan Payton, who had an opportunity to come in from Lanier High School there in Gwinnett County. One of the best high school running backs in the state of Georgia for the 2024 season. He comes in, has unbelievable basically numbers in high school, comes in, again, another track guy, another guy that can absolutely fly. And, he comes in right away and pops off the page with his level of speed. Again, being a running back in college, basically from a freshman side of things, you can step in because it's so instinctual. You have an opportunity to play. I think he's a guy to look at and to circle. There's going to be guys, who have an opportunity to play. It's DJ Murray has kind of shifted from that slot wide receiver to running back. He had a little bit of work last season, and could see some increase this season as well. But no, I think the newcomers are going to come in, and they're going to be probably first, second, third on the depth chart, and no one should be surprised by that based on their pedigree for sure.
We talked about Tawan Payton and how great of a running back he is, but the recruiting riches didn't end there, as they also landed another impressive true freshman, LaDainian Martin. Can you tell us a little bit more about Martin?
Yeah, Martin's a power guy. Kind of a thunder to Peyton's lightning there. All-state caliber player there in the state of South Carolina. Suffered a knee injury late in his, I think, in the first round of the playoffs there. So there wasn't a whole lot of expectations him, even though he enrolled early. He did get healthy in camp and actually had some good moments as well. So he could be a guy who could potentially see the field special teams, but I don't necessarily think that he's going to have a huge impact offensively. But you never know. There's several guys on this roster who have had injury issues in the past. So who knows at that position, if you have a couple guys go down, you get to your opportunity when his number's called. He could do it. And but he was. I was impressed. I wasn't expecting to see him in uniform, much less going through spring practice and playing. So he definitely impressed me.
And you said we shouldn't be surprised to see any of these freshmen get the field. Is there any freshmen that you kind of like think would get that first crack at being out there?
Yeah, I think especially on the defensive side of the ball, that's the one area that we have kind of consistently heard. There's guys. I mean, the one name that just keeps popping over and over again is Jartavius Flournoy, defensive lineman from a factory in Colquitt County. Defensive line, you need so many rotation guys. You need so many reps spread out over the edge and the defensive line. But he just plays with a tremendous force. Guy that came in, again, another early enrollee who's going to play early. Several of their edge guys as well have come in early. Zion Lawson was in early. Chandler Covington was in early. You could see those guys see the field. One of the most intriguing names to me in the whole signing class was Ty Sneed. Guy only basically had one offer, but a freak show at 6'3", 205, another track guy at East Lorenz High School in middle Georgia, a guy that just really, really can move. And I'm very interested to see where he lands. Could see some time on special teams. But I would see even some of the guys potentially from the wide receiver side of things, because that position may not be as open as some of the others with Ted Hurst coming back. But you're going to see some freshmen on the field. I think defensively, you're going to see some guys absolutely step in and have an opportunity to play early.
Well, in 2024, the staff used Freddie Brock as kind of like a workhorse. Should we expect the same type of usage for one of these backs in 2025?
No, that's the one thing. Dell likes to rotate backs heavy, and him getting so late in the process as well. And that whole room battled some injuries as well in 2024. I mean, you've got 5 or 6 running backs that you can go to and feel comfortable with. I think you're going to have whoever's hot, ride some of that. But he comes from Georgia, as we've seen for the University of Georgia for years, is they're going to continue to cycle through running backs, not to wear them completely down, but just continue to kind of hammer you there. And I think, again, the talent level and the diversification of their skill set is very, very high. And again, I think it's, as I mentioned earlier, if the offensive line holds up, you're going to have a very special running back room there in Atlanta.
Well, can you talk to us about some of the skill sets that these guys possess?
Yeah, I mean, Branson Robinson's a power guy. Basically you look at even some of the pictures coming from high school or college at UGA is just a monster physically. Just looks unbelievable, and kind of unfathomable to tackle. Basically, guys like Jordan Simmons, guys like Rashad Amos are a lot of speedier guys, quicker guys, get out in space. Amos has bounced around a little bit, but as I tell our fan base all the time, that's college football, right? You have so many guys that are going from place to place to place. So don't be surprised if guys go 2, 3, 4 different spots and through. But I think that was as I mentioned earlier, Dell loves guys that run and that can run with some significant power and speed, and that's what he's grabbed. Very, very interested in DJ Braswell and see what he looks like as well coming in. Guy that had just tremendous accolades basically coming out of high school. Didn't see a ton of time at South Carolina, and one of those guys that you just wonder, hey, he's just kind of ready to go and seeing what he can step right in and have an opportunity to play right away. And again, at this Sun Belt level, there's very good skill position players, but this room may be one of the best.
Well, I guess week 1, Ole Miss. Who do we see get the first carry in this running back room?
I'm going to say Brance Robinson. If he's healthy, I think he's the guy. Yeah, he knows Ole Miss. He knows the SEC workload. I think that's where I'd give the nod. But I think it's going to be a balanced attack this season for the Panthers for sure.
Well, let's move over to the wide receiver room. And similar to last season, the Panthers will be looking to replace a fair amount of production. Last year, the Panthers were looking to replace 154 targets. This year, they look to replace 113 targets, 706 yards, and 1 touchdown. Highlighting this room is the return of Ted Hurst and DJ Riles. Hurst gave Georgia State fans a scare when he entered the portal. Like I said, he's back. Ted had 56 receptions, 961 yards, receiving, and 9 touchdowns this season ago. Beyond Hurst and Riles, this room is pretty shallow in terms of game experience, as the other wideouts on this roster combined for 2 catches and 32 yards in 2024. To help out this room, the staff has added 3 guys from the portal. We got Javon Robinson coming in from Georgia, Leo Blackburn from Georgia Tech, and Jalen Marshall from Shorter. Ben, what are the expectations for this group heading into the season?
Yeah, a lot of unknowns outside of Hurst. Blackburn has struggled, with injuries at Georgia Tech, but he's another physical specimen. 6'5", over 200 pounds. A humongous target. It's if he could stay healthy, opposite, because we just know Hurst is going to get a lot of attention. Last year was kind of he announced his presence certainly on the stage there. Vanderbilt catching the touchdown pass there to upset the Commodores there at home. You mentioned Javon Robinson looked spectacular in spring coming from Grambling. Really, really, really speedy guy. Can get out in space and really make guys miss. I think he's a guy that could if he doesn't start that slot position, I will be a little bit surprised. As I mentioned a little earlier, there's a lot of young guys that are going to be fighting for spots. From the state of Georgia, they went in and got Amar Soare from Gainesville, super productive high school player. Should have the opportunity to come in from a rotational backup guy, see the field pretty early. They may be a little bit light on experience because it does tilt very, very young, very quick. But there's their talent, their size, their speed, there's explosiveness, and that's what the Panthers want to threaten the ball and really get after it down the field.
Well, at practice, is there anyone that Brown was targeting early and often?
I mean, outside of Hurst, yeah. I mean, and we can talk about a tight end group as well. I think the combo between the tight end group and wide receiver group should kind of mapping those together. I made the statement already. I think the tight end group is probably the best in the Sun Belt. They went and got Cam Overton. You signed Grant Hollier. You went basically into Louisiana Monroe and got Wes Campbell. Big physical guys that can really, really run. But again, if you're not throwing it to Ted Hurst as much as possible, I think it's a mistake. But no, there's guys that can run all over the place from Robinson, as I mentioned earlier, or definitely with Blackburn, who was here in January as well. So there's plenty of guys that need to make a name for themselves and may have that opportunity coming up this fall.
Oh, well, you talked about we got Hurst coming back. He's probably at the X. You talked about Robinson probably playing the slot. Who's going to be on the other outside spot across from Hurst?
Yeah, that should be Leo Blackburn if he's healthy and ready to go. I don't think he just had some injury luck issues there at Georgia Tech, but again, massive body and he should have the opportunity to catch plenty of balls there at the other side.
Well, Ted Hurst had 100 targets a season ago, and as I mentioned, the Panthers lost 113 targets, 706 yards. And we were talking about the tight ends. We haven't, touched on it yet. But Dorian Fleming, he transferred out. He takes 75 targets, 566 yards, and 6 touchdowns with him to Maryland. So you add those together. There's a lot of opportunities. Is Ted Hurst just like licking his chops, like, hey, give me any and all of those, or how do you see those targets and yards, touchdowns getting soaked up by the receiving room.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I mentioned, the combination of the wide receiver and tight end group should be very strong. There's plenty of guys that should be able to get targets all the way through. Cam Overton had a spectacular spring game. Again, got it signed with Gardner Webb out of college. There's not going to be a whole lot of, or out of high school, there's not going to be a whole lot of people that probably turn their heads at them. He was a extremely productive high school prospect, and he told me coming off the spring game field that he should have been number one in the state of Georgia, not Georgia signee Oscar Delp. So the recruiting rankings and analysts disagree with that, but it just tells you kind of his mentality that he has a chip on his shoulder and kind of want to make a big name for him. So, definitely like him. Wes Campbell from Louisiana Monroe, as mentioned earlier, Grant Hollier is a freak show athlete as well. Super productive guy. He's coming in. Came in this summer basically from River Ridge High School as well. So there should be plenty of young guys, as I mentioned, don't have a whole lot of experience, a lot of talent available. Now it's just, kind of how it pieces together and lifts this offense up.
Well, we kind of talked about the tight ends, but we haven't really talked about how they're utilized. So I at least want to let our viewers know if they haven't caught a Georgia State football game, how did the tight ends get utilized in this system?
Yeah, I mean they have they're certainly run first. They're going to block. They're going to be in line that way. Nobody gets really spread out that way. They do run spread offense when wide receivers are on the field. But I think the biggest thing that we've really seen in year two of what the staff wants to do and kind of pushing is, again, finding guys that can run, get open in space, get down the field. And make guys miss. I think there's several guys that can do that. They want to be able to push the ball, vertically. They had the opportunity to do that last year with Hurst, but it was kind of basically him and not much else when they tried to push it that way. So I think you're going to have a more wide open, more kind of attacking the middle of the field a lot more this year, because we know. Safeties are going to have to make a choice. Basically, hey, I'm going to go and roll coverage toward Ted Hurst. I'm going to try to double there, or I'm going to basically stay put and see what happens and comes there. So there will be opportunities on both sides of the field. But yeah, their tight ends should have plenty of targets this season.
Well, going into 2024 season, Georgia State was looking to replace 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. 2025, same story. So they'll be looking to replace every position except for center in 2025. This line stayed relatively healthy all year, but half the top reserves who did fill in have hit the portal. The room is anchored by center Alec Johnson. Other returners include Mason Cook, who took snaps at both guard positions and center, and Donovan Funchess, who took snaps at right guard. The staff also brought in 6 transfers, 4 of which were on campus for the spring. I don't know. I went to public school. I'm not sure if I got all those numbers right. It's hard with all the transfer stuff. But how did the offensive line look in the spring?
Yeah, it looked a lot better. And that was an area that was still it was a concern entering spring. Still have questions coming out. They went and grabbed guys from, again, not bigger schools. Went looking at specific film, going to places like Akron and East Tennessee State. To go grab guys who are probably going to start, but looking at guys technically sound and strong that way, and really went to try to go find some experience as well, because that's what he saw. Didn't like the offensive line that he had. As you mentioned, almost every single one was pushed out or left on their own accord, and went into the portal. And just hammered away to try to find some reinforcements there. I think there are some strong offensive linemen basically they signed, but I don't believe many of those will play this fall and maybe probably helpful for the 2026 season. But yeah, lots of interior offensive line, a lot of tackle help as well, brought in some multiple different pronged approach there to just get size, experience. This line is going to look physically a lot different than it did in 2024 for sure.
So what are your expectations for this room?
Just to be better. I mean, that's it doesn't. I don't think it's crazy to say. You have to be. You have to go from being one of the Sun Belt's weakest rooms to at least right in the middle. There's the talent, the skill positions is too strong. The running back room is too great not to have solid offensive line play. And I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see steps forward with this offensive line. Got to protect your quarterback better than you did last season and not getting guys roughed up. But I think with the ability to have a dual threat quarterback, that will help and help the offensive line a little bit there. But I do think you're going to see a little bit better quality certainly this season from the Panthers O-line.
Now, while this room will be searching for probably different combos to have out there, the center tends to be the leader of the offensive line. How good does it feel to have Alec Johnson back in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, he's played a lot. Guy that, again, played in the bowl game 2 years ago as a freshman. He's back, and that's the one thing too we've seen under Del McGee. There's a lot of cross training going on. Guys that can play center guard, either tackle spots. Seeing that way. But yeah, AJ is certainly a good experienced addition there. Guy that's been in the trenches quite a bit. Was a little bit banged up coming out of spring, so was held out of the spring game. But I got a chance to talk to him afterward, and he didn't have much concern at all being ready to go for summer workouts and certainly for fall practice.
All right, Ben, if you have to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Breakout season. It's got to be the running back room. I've been bragging about them all day. So, I could see a guy like Jordan Simmons popping, guy that didn't really have an opportunity to play a ton again in the SEC. There's going to be a lot of those. A lot of the guys that just didn't have a whole lot of time to play were highly recruited and are out there trying to remind people of how great of a prospect they were. So I'll circle him for now.
All right. Well, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. You mentioned a new defensive coordinator coming in. What kind of defensive scheme are we going to see here in 2025?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change a ton. I think ultimately it's going to still be, attacking multiple front set. You're going to have, basically 3 down linemen. I could see an opportunity where just because of the amount of edge rushers that have been collected this offseason, that you have, years ago they call it the NASCAR package. Every other folks call it there, where you have speed rushers basically on the field and pass, heavy downs and things like that. But no, it definitely needs to be better. The secondary got victimized a ton last season. Couldn't stop the run, gave up way too many points, and really, as we mentioned a little bit off air, I mean, they were in games in every single, 10 of the 12 games last year. They were in it basically to the final quarter and sometimes the final series, basically. So defensively has to get a lot better. Coming out of spring, the front 7 felt really good about. Secondary still had questions about because the guys hadn't played a lot. There's talent there that just, again, inexperience. So very similar to the wide receiver room on offense. The defensive side of the ball is going to have some inexperience there, but some guys that are really, really going to have to play big reps and big minutes there to, again, if this team's going to have the success they want to have.
Well, let's take a look at this defensive line. In the group sees 3 of their top 4 linemen in terms of snaps graduate. And I'm counting Kevin Swinton there as well. I mean, he's an outside linebacker, but he essentially plays as an edge in this 3-3-5. You got this jack guy. So I kind of count him in here. Swinton, KD, McDaniel combined for 47 total pressures and 6 sacks in 2024. Anthony Bloom is a guy on the interior that will be missed. The Panthers return Henry Bryant II on the interior and several rotational guys who I look to step up in some of these vacated starting roles. Those include the likes of Funchess Lewis II and Sir Mells on the interior, Ian Matthews and Dorian Royals on the edge. The staff also brought 3 guys to compete off the edge. Is it safe to assume there's going to be, or is it safe to assume that we're going to have a battle to watch here on the edge in the summer?
Yeah, there's no doubt. You brought in Marlon Dean, big time player, started his career at Georgia, went out to Utah State. You've got Jabril Rhodes Nelson, another guy that I like a lot. Not necessarily going to pop tremendously, but that's one thing that we've seen universally is when they go and reach and try to find guys that may be off the radar, they're planning on plugging them in right away. So I think you're going to see that along the defensive line. You mentioned, Bryant, Fuchs Lewis. You're going to need 650, 700, 800 potential, reps basically between the defensive line. So you got plenty of guys that are going to be able to rotate in there. The staff added Xavier Carter from UCF to come in as well. Guy come back to the Atlanta area. They're going to have quite a big rotation of guys that can really, really get after the quarterback, and that's what this team needs. Historically, it's been a struggle. They went to the JUCO ranks as well to go grab Jonah Reeder, big body guy, can really, really move. They're high on him, who was here in the spring as well. So you're going to have a lot of names, maybe not a lot of guys with a ton of experience, but again, a lot of talent there in the on the front edges there.
I talked about McDaniel and Swint with the pressure that they were able to cause. Who in this room's ready to kind of take that next jump and create that pressure here in 2025?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, creating pressure, right? Impacting the quarterback, it just, protecting the quarterback and impacting the quarterback on the other side of the ball. And again, you go look, we went looking at our staff, single season records, career sack records. The COVID season, Jordan Strawn had 10.5 sacks, was tied for the nation's lead. That still sits at the top. For any Panther defender, you're going to need multiple guys basically approaching 5, 6, 7 sacks this season, I think, in order to contend and really get after, because the Sun Belt has some quarterbacks that can really, really play and move, and you're going to need to impact the quarterback in a major way. And that's one of those things where the staff has attracted the talent, has built it. Now it's about executing it.
Well, you said you're kind of looking for 5, 6, 7 sacks, maybe from multiple guys. Who's a guy or two that you think is primed to get that sack total that you're talking about?
Yeah, Marlon Dean should be that guy. He's a guy that again has played at a high level. Comes from an SEC school before he stepped to Utah State. Looked unbelievable in spring. Big body, long, twitchy, can really, really get off the edge and impact the game. I like him a ton, and he should be an all Sun Belt caliber guy, I believe. Just really, really, again, 6'5", 235, long arms. He really should be able to impact, positively this season for the Panthers for sure.
Well, as it pertains to the linebacking group, we have some good news. We have some bad news. Bad news that they're down 3 linebackers due to graduation, and 4 have hit the portal. This team has some depth here in 2024. However, depth may be a concern here in 2025. The good news, their top 2 linebackers, Josiah Robinson and Damani Wilson, are returning for 2025. I just laid out the ups and downs for this room. What should we make of this room heading into 2025? Yeah,
they went, hit the junior college early, enrolled a couple guys from on the defensive side of the ball. One of the guys was Kobe Owens to play kind of the inside linebacker there, grabbing him. Again, it's good to have returning guys, but just like defensive line, you're going to need linebackers that can come in and play and significant rotation spots. I do expect there to be several guys moved around, from inside outside potentially, guys that have an opportunity to jump in and play. But Wilson probably may not come off the field. He was extremely impressive in 2024. Was a guy that pushed Justin Abraham, who was a 3-year contributor for the Panthers, to the bench basically. Was just so physically gifted and just made plays. So I could see again, those 2 guys locking in those spots. Don't see a whole lot of rotational depth there at this point. That just hasn't played a ton, but I'm sure there'll be a name by the time the season's ending, just like there was last year. Say, hey, you know what? This he stepped forward and made an impression for sure.
Well, in 2024, the secondary took some hits, but it was pretty deep. However, what we just covered with the linebacker room is some of the same story in the secondary. I may even go as far as to say this defensive secondary possibly takes the biggest hit of all of the defensive positional rooms. They lost 3 of their top cornerbacks. You got Gavin Pringle graduated, Jerion Gilmore's off to Georgia Tech, and Isaiah Guy's off to USF. And as for the safeties, their starters Kenyatta Watspan the second.
Yep.
He graduated. You got Jeremiah Johnson. He's going to NC State. The safeties room will be anchored by DIC Hopkins, who played in all 12 games and rotated in, while the cornerback room is going to lean on Chams Digene and Deuce Walker. The staff also brought in Jordan Huff from ECU to help with the safety room, and Bernard Causey, the third from LSU, to help out. After the spring, the Panthers also added Tyler Scott from Auburn into that cornerback room. Ben, I'm a little bit nervous about the secondary as I've kind of laid out, but I'm not there every day like you are around and hearing things. How do you view this defensive secondary heading into 2025?
Yeah, should be talented but inexperienced. 2 guys that were added for the junior college room, Damani Gaston and Demarion Fillmore, both come, highly regarded. Played some time at some of the top JUCOs. Bernard Causey was a guy that again could start at corner, or probably one of the best cover corners on the roster right now. Just hasn't played a lot because he's been, he was buried deep on that LSU depth chart. Very, very late. Staff brought in Isaiah Dunson from Baylor. He should factor in as well as a graduate student. He is actually does have some experience playing at this level. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who actually steps forward and jumps in that secondary because as you mentioned, you had experienced guys that have played a lot of football who are just not here anymore. So that is an area of concern leaving spring, kind of going into summer. I think the talent for guys is there. The depth is not. So guys are going to need to stay healthy. I think you could also see some things, played out there where you're going to have guys moved around potentially. This is also an opportunity for some young guys to come in potentially to play right away. So it's definitely an area of concern. You mentioned Huff. I was really impressed with him, just pure physicality that he showed in the spring coming in from ECU. He should be I believe a starter there at one of the safety spots, but you legit may have 3 or 4 spots that you're just still wondering about going in the fall camp. So the battles should rage pretty hard in August for sure.
Well, who does this room, when you look at the safeties and the cornerbacks together, who provides the leadership for the secondary?
Yeah, it's a great question because you have so many new guys, and I'm not in their room with them. Don't know who's kind of stepping up that way, but you do have experienced coaches on that side of the ball, and Travis Pearson, setting the tone from the defensive coordinator spot down. But you had the defensive coaches. You had a tremendous amount of turnover in all 3 levels as well. So I'm interested to see what develops and kind of who takes that step forward there. But you mentioned Huff. Huff should be that guy, right? He's played a lot, in the back third there, and I'm always interested to see too how junior college transfers that come in where JUCO football is just very, very dog eat dog. Everyone's kind of out for their own, ready to get themselves out of the JUCO side of things to see how they assimilate in. Traditionally, it's gone well in the last few years at Georgia State, guys being able to come in and play right away from the junior college ranks. But I would lean toward Huff at this point. But that's definitely a question right out of the gate for me and when fall camp starts.
Well, you talked about all the talent in this room. Let's just say everything pans out really well. Like they're just make everything just so hard for passing the ball. They're locking up everybody. Who is the guy in this room that it is kind of pointing their fingers to? Like this is the guy. The reason that the whole defense of the defensive secondary just like plays lights out.
Yeah, I've been talking about Bernard Causey a little earlier. He's probably one of the best pure cover corners on this roster. He just hasn't played a ton coming from LSU, but just, again, a freak show athlete, guy that should be able to do it, be able to man up someone, not afraid to tackle somebody in open space either. A little bit lighter. I think their plan is to try to get him to gain a little bit of weight this summer and move on that front. But yeah, if he's able to kind of slow on one side of the field, I think you definitely have an opportunity to move some things around and let this defense get a lot more aggressive on all three levels.
All right, Ben, if you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Yeah, I'm started with him. I'm going to finish with him. I think Marlon Dean has an opportunity to lead this team in sacks and be one of the top sack guys, in the Sun Belt.
All right, well, let's head over to the special teams. How are those units looking, and is there any concerns?
Yeah, you've got some new blood over there. Certainly with the kicker and the punter. Was really impressed with what the staff did. Went out and got Reed Chanley to take over the punting duties. Was one of the best, probably if not the best, FCS punter last season. As I always joke with punters, it's great to have one who's awesome. You don't want to see him on the field because that means your offense is missed. But I think the kicking battle is still TBD at this point. I think there's several guys that are looked at, and I wouldn't even be surprised if there's an addition there as well from the portal to take over that spot. So the Panthers have been blessed traditionally with very good kickers from Will Lutz, who's with the Broncos, and Brandon Wright, who did his thing in the USFL all the way down. But I think that's one area that there's still another question mark kind of going into summer.
Well, now that spring practice is over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into the season?
I still always worry about the offensive line first. It all starts up front. If the offensive line isn't able to push guys around and get off the spot, isn't able to protect and able to really let this running back room get loose, it's going to be trouble. We mentioned the secondary. There's not a whole lot of depth there. I think that would be a close second behind that.
Well, in today's age of NIL, revenue sharing, transfer portal, how has that changed the Panthers' recruiting philosophy?
Yeah, it's been difficult, as you kind of aptly put over. A lot of the star players, a lot of guys that had played rotational minutes have exited, gone to bigger and badder programs. We've seen that really the last 3 or 4 cycles. It's one of the reasons that forced former coach Sean Elliott out of Atlanta. He was tired of dealing with it, tired of getting his best players basically ransacked and didn't really want to deal with it as much. Dell has leaned into the portal, has told people very frankly, listen, you can come here, ball out, and have an opportunity to jump and launch yourself to a bigger, badder program. We've seen that in multiple times. Guys, in some cases, going closer to home, maybe having better opportunities for them at the next level or to finish out their career. So now I think the pitch is, hey, you have an opportunity to play downtown Atlanta, really showcase your skills basically. And if you play well enough, you have an opportunity to go get a big paycheck somewhere else. It's not likely going to be down here at Georgia State, although there is an NIL collective that's continuing to build and continuing to kind of grow that way, and was able to keep Ted Hurst home for at least another season. So it is building, it is growing, but it is definitely a very new wave, and it's tough for programs in the Sun Belt and like Georgia State to maintain top talent, and in some cases attract top talent, even though Dell's doing a fantastic job with that so far.
Well, I think Del McGee might be proud of you, maybe me, I don't know. But there's something you said last year that stuck with me. Del McGee said, we've got to recruit the 2 states, the state of Atlanta and the state of Georgia, and we've got to do that. And you talked about these guys getting plucked. And pretty much if you make an all-conference team, you're going to another team in the P4. Do you notice that Georgia State's got a path to higher recruits now because maybe a higher 3-star or a lower 4 stars not going to a school, and then when we just had the house settlement where we're going to have the restrictions on those scholarships. Do you see that this actually helps Georgia State?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got a super talented, rich area in Metro Atlanta and the state of Georgia as well. I mean, you saw just this cycle. I mean, DJ Avery was a guy who's 24/7 composite 4-star, stays at home, has an opportunity to play early. Keelan Butler turned down multiple Power 4 programs, stay at home, will have an opportunity to play early. And as we just talked about, these young guys, they can ball out from an early part. They're going to launch themselves and say, hey, look, I was a Power 4 recruit coming out of high school. I have an opportunity to go to a Power 4 at the next step with a good season or multiple good seasons. So I think certainly the coaching staff helps. Certainly the location helps. Again, Panthers want to play at a high level. They want to win championships. You got to go get talent to do that. And, again, as we talked about a little bit off air, the Panthers are hosting a huge group just this weekend coming up for the 2026 class as well. So, Dell's recruit or die philosophy is certainly strong and ongoing, and he will continue to recruit and go after guys who he's not scared of basically banging up against anyone and everyone for guys that he believes can help his program now.
And for our listeners and viewers, if you don't know much about recruiting, Georgia is just this hotbed. There's just so much talent, and like I said, McGee really focusing on the state and Atlanta itself could be a huge for Georgia State. But Ben, what do you think is the main strength of this team in 2025?
Yeah, we hit the running back room. I think running backs are definitely right at the top of my list. Tight end's very strong as well. I think that's probably the one that just jumps at you with so much talent, so much opportunity there. I think the Panthers are going to want to run the football a lot more, get back to where they were 3-4 years ago, or maybe not that run heavy where you're 65-35 run versus pass, but this team is going to want to run the football. As we know, Del McGee's been a running back coach at a high level for many years as well. So he wants to be able to run the football to set up the pass. I think that's where this team has to be the strongest and should be this fall.
What does success look like for the Panthers in 2025?
I think that plain and simple, you have to get to a bowl game. That's kind of it's been done here before. It's been established. 3-9 was a huge step backward for the program. A lot of folks kind of writing it off as well. Dell got in late and hey, this and that and the other. There were winnable games, as we mentioned a little earlier. 4 of the games, basically, the Panthers lost by a touchdown or less in 2024. So you need to win those games. You need to push that. The staff believes they brought in enough talent to push them over the edge and get those wins. The schedule is not easy. Starting out with Ole Miss, going to Vanderbilt a couple weeks later. You have a really, really brutal stretch in October as well, getting into conference with JMU and App State, which Panthers just have not solved, and the games haven't been particularly close. You've got rivalry games, against Georgia Southern in there as well, facing Coastal Carolina. So there's a lot of landmines in the first 6-8 weeks of the season. The Panthers have to maintain and build basically out of that week 1 game against Ole Miss. And, I think that's as many folks want the Panthers obviously to win. They'll be huge underdogs. If they're in that game for 4 quarters, that tells me a lot about where this program is talent-wise. That's really the only game I believe that they're going to be out-talented in, body for body. The Memphis game is also intriguing as well. A couple weeks later, just seeing where those 2 programs are and have been. Memphis has kind of got a little bit of a lead there for the Panthers. And this is a return game from a few years ago when the Panthers played up there in the Liberty Bowl on a Friday night. So should be a lot of fun for sure.
Well, we covered special teams. We talked NIL. We've talked recruiting. We've talked it all. Ben, is there anything else that you want to share? I think that we should know about this 2025 Georgia State Panthers football team.
Yeah, should be fun. A lot of questions, a lot of that will be answered over the course of 12 weeks. I think expectations are certainly rising. I think from a national and regional point of view, expectations are probably still pretty low. But I can tell you, folks in Atlanta want to see this team win. And as we've seen, folks pay attention in the city of Atlanta if you do win and win at a high level, especially at home. And I think the Panthers will certainly take steps forward in 2025.
All right, Ben. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Appreciate you, man.
All right. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.